Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching Fanboy.
Fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot, I assume Tom.
Mark Critch, we are talking about Son of a Critch Season 3 coming to the CW network. Congratulations on a show based on your memoir and a more over-the-top version of your real life, I guess would be the way to put it.
Yeah, somewhat. A lot of it is the spine of every story, the spine of every episode is based on a true story. And then, like some of the things wouldn't have happened to me when I was the age Benjamin Evan Ainsworth is in the show, maybe a few years before, a few years after. But everything has a line of truth running through it.
I do have to ask you this. You play a version of your father. And what is your dad's reaction to have his son portray him on camera?
Well, Dad's no longer with us. He passed.
Oh, my condolences. Mine too.
No, that's okay. It's like 12 years ago now. And he was old. He was 93 when he passed. I had an old dad. Dad didn't have me until later in life. And but growing up, I did a lot of. Dad was a really well-known radio personality in the town I grew up in. And so I grew up doing sketch comedy, and one of the first impressions I ever did was of my dad because the audience knew him so well. And he didn't like that so much at the time. And that we recreate that actually in this season, episode 12 of the show. But over time, he came to appreciate it and like it. So I kind of had a green light from him long before I even wrote the book.
And, your mother in the show, and I presume in real life, is also Irish. Malcolm McDowell playing your grandfather in this has got to be like one of the greatest gets in television.
Well, he's amazing. We had this wonderful casting agency that had done Game of Thrones in Ireland, and they suggested Malcolm. And I thought, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. But let's have a list of people who might actually do it. And anyway, they sent him the script and he really liked it. And they sent him 2 more scripts. He liked those. And then he asked for a copy of the book. Then we had a quick Zoom conversation and it connected to him. I guess growing up in Liverpool, it's not that much different than growing up in a place that had been settled by people from that part of the world and had a lot of this things in common. So it really connected with him. And it's something he wanted to do. And he has been absolutely fantastic. Both he and our lead, Benjamin Evan Ainsworth, are both Brits. So they have a lot in common when they're in between scenes.
The show is a lot of fun. And the interaction between Benjamin's version of you and the young girl that plays Fox, like there's a part of me that like wishes you married Fox in real life.
Well,
just to Fox, have that dynamic. Well,
Fox is based on 2 people. And didn't marry either one of them. But what I loved about them growing up was that they were both kind of defined by their families and supposed to be these tough kids and bullies. And they fought against that the more they kind of came into themselves. And Sophia Powers, who plays Fox in the show, just does a fantastic job. She's such a wonderful actress. That's the great thing about the show is that we have such strong actors in the show in all the roles. So we can have lots of comedy, but we'd also have some really great dramatic moments too. And that's wonderful to have.
From previous seasons, my favorite episode probably was the one where Benjamin and Malcolm are at the funeral. Yeah. And everybody's discussing what's going on. And then, the brother had passed on in the other room, When you can make light of death, I think you've touched upon something comedically, because a lot of people find it to be taboo to speak ill of the dead, or at least be humorous about it. How do you find that balance with the dramatic aspect of the show and the humor? Because some people really don't have a sense of humor anymore, or at least right now.
Well, where we grew up, it was settled a lot by English people from places like Liverpool, which are very Irish, and then Irish folk. And so our sense of humor here is a little darker, and it comes from a lot of tragedy, living by the sea and things like that. So you got to find the humor in these situations, no matter how dark they are, just to get through and to carry on to another day. So we kind of deal with everything with humor, and that's wit. And if you don't have something funny to say about something, then you're kind of not invited to the next party, you know. But the great thing about that is, I think humor can be used to acknowledge the weight of a dark, dramatic situation, and it's kind of almost like a pat on the shoulder, like, we will get through this. We'll be able to get on to the next thing. There's still some light here. And so I mean, so there's always these great mix here of drama and comedy. And that's something we really want to explore in the show.
You know, I always tell my Irish friends, I said, you guys didn't know when to stop walking. You should have been in the Mediterranean with us. You know, you drink, you dance, you fight, then you remember, then you drink again, then you forgot why you fought, then you remembered why you fought, and you fight again, and then you dance some more. So, like, you guys just didn't know when to stop walking.
Well, that's the thing. It's just yeah, we're Irish who could swim, and it's amazing that that's kind of a thing where it's like, yeah, you can feel deeply, you can get in a fight, you can have these huge table turning moments, and then go, okay, well, that's sorted. That we let that out. And it's a lot of it. Same thing with humor is, after, when you're crying, still making jokes, is letting some of that steam out of the kettle. You know, like it's a great release. And then you're able to reset afterwards. So yeah, people where I'm from, they do feel quite strongly and don't hold it against you.
You know, and I do have to ask this because I've never heard the name Critch before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does it mean in Gaelic, or is it Gaelic?
It's an Irish name. I think it means kind of like from like a crest, like on a hill, kind of a thing. But I did tried to do the family tree. We'd never done it before. Dad would always say, if don't look up where you came from, because you'll spend twice as much money trying to cover it back up again. But and I found out that the actual name was Cridge in England. I went to this town that we came from, and like in the 1600s, and I found a tombstone that says Cridge, Cridge. Those people couldn't read or write when they came over, and then the priest would have said, okay, what's your last name? Critch. He heard Cridge, he heard Critch, and wrote it down. So technically, I've been lying. It's a show business name, like one of those great showbiz names, Critch. It rolls off the tongue.
Well, the name is great. It's a beautiful play on words. You know, we've had other memoir shows before, like Everybody Hates Chris, and then the Goldbergs. What is it about riding the nostalgia train where we want to go back to the 80s and the 90s and the 70s and just have those simpler moments?
When I was a kid growing up in the 80s, you know, Wonder Years was on, and then the great movie A Christmas Story was one I loved, which is really kind of where I get the sense of this show. And that was set in the 50s. And I think we all have nostalgia in a simpler time, but what I've noticed is a lot of families are watching it together, and the parents will watch for nostalgia. And then, but the kids watch because these kids are their age, and they're still, doesn't matter what decade it is, you're still wondering if that girl likes you, you're still being bullied, you still feel like the outcast. And so a lot of these things, these themes that run through, the folks can remember when, but the kids are still going through it. So that's one thing I really love about the show, is that families watch together, and each generation thinks it's for them.
Well, it is a fun family show. It's not talking down to the kids, and it's not making the adults want to lose their mind because it's too childish.
Yeah.
One thing, you know, with Ben playing, you know, a version of you as an actor, he has to be allowed to put himself into the character, but he also knows you playing his father. So is there like moments where he's mimicking aspects of you in his character or in his version of Mark, or is it all Ben just going through it?
Well, first thing I told him was, it doesn't matter who I am. This is a character, and play it the way you want, because you can't box people in too much. But then I did notice him kind of staring at me. He was walking with his hands behind his back. And I said, what? He goes, oh, nothing. I said, what? And then later somebody said, oh, he's walking like you. I said, what do you mean? And they said, he walks with his hands behind his back. I said, I don't do that. And then I realized as I was saying I don't do that, I was doing that. And I said, I do that? And they said, yeah. So he does watch me closely, more so at the start of things. But I kept telling everybody, like, look, these are characters. To me, they're people and they're memories, but just make them who you feel they need to be, because you own them now, you know? And so, yeah, I always think of them as a better looking me, a better me, the me I wish I was.
Mark, it has been a great pleasure chatting with you today. Unfortunately, we have to wrap things up. I could talk to you all day about the inspiration for the show and how we want to keep going. But Son of a Critch season 3 premieres Thursday night, January 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific on the CW network. Congratulations on the continued success of the series. And I can't wait to see, Mark graduate from high school at some point.
Oh, hopefully he graduates junior high at the end of this season. So let's hope it keeps going. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely, man. It's been a great pleasure.